Welcome in, everybody, to This Just In, a fast hour around the world of sports and pretty much everything you need to know. Let's get right to it, though, the Western Conference Finals starting here, right? So Steph has just been unbelievable carrying the workload for the Dubs. 30 points in each of the last two games. Not to mention, he's also leading Golden State in assists against Dallas. Luka has done nothing but take charge on offense for the Mavs, dropping back-to-back 40-point games. Even with his scoring outburst, Luka has combined minus 61 on the court this series. And for the 11th time, Steve Kerr has led the Warriors to a 3-0 lead in the playoffs, tied for the second most by a single coach in NBA history. Now one win away to their sixth finals appearance in 2014. ESPN reporter Kendra Andrews joins us live from Texas here to give us a little bit more texture on the mindset right now of this Warriors team. They're just one win away from the NBA Finals. From what you can gather, what is Golden State's mindset headed into this?
Yeah, Diana, well, when Draymond was asked a couple days ago, what does it mean to be one win away from the finals? He said it means just that. We're still one win away. There's unfinished business to be taken care of against a very difficult Dallas Mavericks team. So the Warriors are trying not to get too far ahead of themselves. Steph Curry even said during Game 3, I whispered to myself under my breath, stay locked in, stay in this moment, because for the Warriors, until they actually make it to the finals, they say we haven't achieved anything.
So we know Steph has had just a fair share of success with past Warriors teams. We've seen it. But what has he said about this specific team right now?
Yeah, well, Steph said that this postseason run, the way that they've been playing in the playoffs, this is the best basketball the Warriors have played all year. He said, yeah, maybe there were stretches where our offense was flowing a little bit better, things like that. But in terms of them overcoming inconsistencies, having players pop in and out of the lineups, but being able to come together for it to lead to wins, he says this is the best that we've ever done it. And that right now, that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, you know that Curry's coming off his 7th career playoff game with 30 points, 10 assists. All other players in Warriors history have 2 such games. So, Kendra, great reporting there. We're going to get to the Mavs side to all this in just a few minutes. But let's have JJ Redick back in here to give us a little breakdown of this. You know, before we get into this series, right? So, look, it's not the most exciting thing right now just because we know Golden State's got such a lead. But we've heard you talk about tiers of players, and you put Steph in a group with guys like Shaq, Kobe, Wilt, but he still needs to do more for you to believe that he can get ahead of all these guys and maybe separate himself. What is that for you?
Well, it's not just for me. I think anybody who sort of looks at the historical context and the pantheon of the greatest players ever, the one thing missing from Steph's resume is that finals MVP. Should he get it this year? Probably moves up a notch in that pantheon. But look, I've said this numerous times. He is the only player in NBA history to average 25 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds on a winning team in the finals and not get MVP. He did it 3 times. Yeah. He should have got MVP in 2015, if we're being honest. And it's not his fault that Kevin Durant was just slightly better than him in 17 and 18. Perk and I got into this a bunch this morning about our Mount Rushmore of the NBA, and Steph has a clear case if he wins a couple more championships and a couple finals MVPs to be in that discussion in the Mount Rushmore of the NBA.
Yeah, so it's like the titles are helpful, but getting those individual accolades for you could really be something to have him stand out.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's had an incredible career, and he's one of the greatest players ever. Let's be clear on that. I have like 11 players that I think are the best ever, and Steph's in that group. But the separator, again, that he is missing from his resume is that finals MVP. And truthfully, as a basketball fan, I'd love to see him get it this year.
All right, let's go back to the series, though, right? Because we still got to play here. What do you think the Mavs got to do? Like, if you could just give me one thing, JJ, they got to lock in on here if they don't want to go home.
How about I give you one on each? I'll give you one on each.
All right, I'll take
both sides of the ball. Offensively, they simply haven't made open shots this series. That's the reality. They shot 48% and 46% on open three-pointers in the first 2 rounds. They're shooting 33% on three-pointers in this round. The other thing, they just have not been able to protect the paint. And this is what the Warriors do. They spread you out. They use the threat of the three-point shot to get in the paint, either with cuts or drives, as we see with Steph Curry over and over again. Right now, they're averaging more points in the paint than in any series in the Steve Kerr era.
So, moving ahead to Golden State, or at least going back to them. And look, sorry, Dallas fans, I don't want to go ahead too far here, but let's say we're going to look ahead here for Golden State, and they were to close out this series here, and they could get a week off, right? They get so much rest. In your opinion, at this point, do you think this is going to help them or hurt them?
Well, there is something to be said for getting that time off, getting rest, getting all those lingering injuries taken care of. There is, and we've seen this happen in the playoffs, there is times where that first game after a long rest, you come out a little rusty, your rhythm is off. My guess is if I've been through this on a sweep, my guess is if they win tonight, they get a couple days off, they get treatment, they do their individual work, and then they have probably a couple days where they scrimmage inter-squad just to keep that rhythm of playing live action basketball. This is unique, though. This year is unique because this rest could be so beneficial because both teams in the Eastern Conference are so banged up.
Yeah, that's the advantage there, knowing that they're dealing with so many injuries. And speaking of the East, let's move on to that, where we know that the Celtics right now, even their series with the Heat after a Game 4 win last night, simply put, Boston showed up. Miami didn't, right? Pretty simple analysis there. And the Heat starters combined for 18 total points. 18. Jason Tatum bounced back with 31 in the win. So just boldly here, what was your biggest takeaway from the Heat's lack of performance?
I'm still looking for Bam Adebayo to string together multiple games scoring the basketball. He has shown he's capable. Game 3, he looked like a first-team All-NBA player. Let's be very, very clear on that. But he has this up-and-down mentality with his aggressiveness and then being passive on the offensive end. And I thought there were times where he had single coverage in Game 4 and he simply didn't look to shoot and score. For them to win this series, obviously Jimmy Butler's got to be right. They've got to get some production out of Oladipo with Tyler Hero out. But Bam has to be A1 or A2 for them to win this series.
You listen to their post-game comments, things that they said, Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, and it's like, it was just like any other game, right? They were so calm, but are you buying that? Like, can you translate for me what they really mean? Because they seemed a little too calm.
That's a team full of competitors, a team full of people that have pride, and we talk about Heat culture all the time. I'm sure there were some heated discussions in that locker room, on the bench during the game. I've been there as a player. You're frustrated, you're getting blown out. There is a positive in terms of looking forward and just moving on, learning what you can from getting blown out and getting to the next game. To me, they have the formula to beat this Celtics team. The Celtics are such a good defensive team. What they did in Game 3 in terms of the Kyle Lowry throw-aheads, using Bam as a hub and a facilitator, getting that defense moving, that's the formula to beat this team.
Jason Tatum obviously had a fantastic night, but for him individually, for them to win the whole championship, what do you need to see from him?
Look, I actually don't get caught up in his shooting numbers because every player is going to have off shooting nights. You know, he had a 10-point game in Game 3 of the Milwaukee series. He came back with 30, 34, 46, and 23, 8, and 6 in a Game 7. It's not like he's this up-and-down player. The question I have for him is his decision-making. And he can't afford to have high turnover games. He can't afford to be indecisive on his drives and his ISOs. That slows the offense down. The further and further along you go in the playoffs, those high turnover games, that indecisiveness, that's what hurts your team more so than just an off-shooting night. They have the defense to win.
Speaking of making decisions, the Lakers are making a decision right now with who they want to name as their head coach. And according to Mark Stein, they've not completely abandoned hope that Doc Rivers becomes unexpectedly unavailable, despite the fact that the Sixers GM is insisting that Rivers is going to be back next season. So, look, he's still with the Sixers. He has a job. Yeah. The Lakers are sitting there like, maybe hoping that something happens. But before we even get there, what do you think makes Doc such a good coach?
Well, look, he has a personality and a presence. And I think specifically with that Lakers locker room, and this is speculation, that's what they need to a degree. They need somebody with cachet. Stephen and I talked about that yesterday on First Take.
Yeah.
He's great in terms of basketball acumen, X's and O's, and he's a great communicator. And I look at all the dysfunction from last year with the Lakers, and then I think about what Doc took over in LA, to a degree, what happened with the Sixers. And he has put some semblance of culture and functionality in that locker room in Philadelphia. He has to get a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, so you think that the traits Doc has, so those things that you pointed out, do you think those are strong enough for him to basically clean up the mess in LA?
I think, I'll say it again, I think all other three candidates are very qualified and would be good head coaches in LA. The bigger issue there is figuring out the fit of LeBron with Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis's health, and then how do you build out that roster, given that you have three guys on max contracts, no young players to develop, and no draft picks. Like, that's the bigger issue. It's not necessarily the coach. Do I think Doc Rivers going there or any other coach going there can get them to the 5th or 6th seed next year? Absolutely. The bigger issue is the roster.
Yeah. All right, two head coaches.